Be always manic or always depressed. You have to have the manic feelings and the depressed feelings.
Right, and I've seen people who are just depressed, but, I've never seen a person who is just manic and they've never had the depression. So I've seen depressed people for sure, people with up and down for sure, but I've never seen people who are just up.
Right.
I guess those people don't come.
Right. They don't come to see the psychiatrist. Number 2, for a manic episode, you must experience an elevated mood for at least a week. Again, with bipolar 2, it can be slightly shorter. But again, a manic elevated mood, meaning above and beyond normal. Those of us who are just happy and, it's an obvious, I would think it would seem obviously over the top, yes?
Yes, and you'd see that person, you'd say, well, why can't he shut up? He keeps talking.
Right.
And that would be, with this, and then they're also grandiose. They have a feeling that they're so wonderful, nobody could be as wonderful as they are, and, you'd say, wow, what's the matter with that person? It's quite obvious to you.
You're making me think of someone I interviewed once. Okay. Number 3, in a down or depressed mood, the state is present for at least 2 weeks. You feel sadness, emptiness, hopelessness nearly every day, and a decreased ability to feel pleasure.
Right. That happens. They can't enjoy food. They can't enjoy sex. They can't enjoy life. They can't enjoy reading a book or watching a movie. Nothing that they used to enjoy.
Yeah. Number 4, often a family history. We just talked about that. Number 5, it usually begins in the late teen years or early 20s. Although you say that often onset could be in 60s or 70s.
Right. Not often, but I've seen people come in like in their 60s or 70s, and the person is manic, and they never had that their whole life. And they're having these episodes up and down.
Wow.
And people used to say, well, it can't be bipolar because they didn't have it earlier. Well, guess what? Some of these people are getting it late in life as well.
At number 6, you say a person can have a mixed episode of mania and depression and swing back and forth from one pole to the other. What's the timing on these swings? Is it like from one day to the next? Or what's the timing on
I've even seen it, usually it's one day to the next, but I've seen it where they have a mixed state where they feel they're talking blah, 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 or they're spending money, but they feel depressed underneath. So they could have one part of it. I've seen it happen together, and that's really gets them sick.
Got it.
Like a manicky, and then at the same time, they say, oh, I feel so depressed.
And there's a suicide risk, I would imagine. A lot of folks who commit suicide, poor things, I bet.
Yeah, this is the really bad part. It's a big suicide risk. It's something like 15 times that of the general population. And a lot of very great creative people that we admire, like Virginia Woolf, the great author, she killed herself, and some of these composers.
What about Ernest Hemingway? Ernest Hemingway,
a great writer also, and he killed himself. It gets to the point where if they're untreated, like those people were for sure, they just can't take it anymore. It's such a suffering. They go up and down, and they never know where they are, and they're suffering. It might sound like fun to be grandiose or be inflated like that, but it's not fun for them.
Do you think Ernest Hemingway, was he diagnosed with bipolar disorder?
I think he had bipolar, and he shot himself. He was also an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So, once the substance abuse gets in there, it's really bad because they can't think straight at all. If they have alcohol in or some other kind of drugs in there, and then they could impulsively do the suicide. Right,
and I want to say this, if anybody's listening, you or someone you love, if anybody's listening, and as you listen to this, I just feel I need to say this, if anybody's listening to this program, you're feeling really low, I want you to know, number 1, it's going to get better, but also I want to give out this number. If you're at risk, this is the National Suicide Prevention Line. It's 800-273-8255. 800-273-8255. If you need help, that's the National Suicide Prevention Line. They're there 24 hours a day. You're not alone. All right, you're not alone, and things will get better. Remember, suicide is a permanent solution for something that's temporary. All right, I feel like I need to say that. I've known a lot of people in my life. I know people in my life who have committed suicide, and it's very sad. It's very, very sad indeed.
Terrible. And in the city, you could call 911. or if there are any relatives around who see a person like the child or somebody else who's feeling like that, immediately call 911. The ambulance will come and take the person to the hospital.
Yeah, they'll put him on a 5150, an involuntary psychiatric hold, right?
Right, and then he'll be watched by doctors and nurses and get some help.
Right. Now, is the Latino population more likely? Because see, here's the thing. I really looked around the internet for statistics, and what I found. Well, let me tell you what I found. Where's my notes here? Okay, this is what I found. This was really just one study that I could find that would even say this. This was a 2010 study out of Asia Pacific Psychiatry, which is a journal. And it said that Asian and Latino compared to Caucasian patients have significantly higher prevalence of bipolar 1 disorder, 58.8 and 60% versus 37.2% respectively. And Asian and Latino patients also had a higher prevalence of history of psychoses, but this was related to the excess of bipolar 1 disorder. That was the only study I could find that said that Asian and Latinos, everything else I found said that Latinos are kind of on par with the white community. I think, though, it goes back to reporting.
I think it goes back to reporting because in my experience and people that I know, I don't think it's more prevalent in the Hispanic population. Maybe people wait till they're extremely depressed or extremely manic before they get into the hospital or whatever, they get treatment. But I don't think it's any more prevalent. It's kind of like schizophrenia in a way. Schizophrenia all over the world is 1% of the population, and that's a statistic that is held up for years and years. And I think bipolar is something like that too. It's like 1% of the population of the world. And I don't think it has to do with different groups, but it has to do with reporting, and maybe, the community takes care of the person more than the community takes care of the average American. Maybe something like that, because Hispanics are known for good family connections, where the family will try to take care of the person, right?
Right. Now, I wanted to mention some things. If you've got brain chemistry, I just found some interesting. This was posted on the Mayo Clinic website. And these are things I knew already, but I thought it was interesting that I found it on the Mayo Clinic website. If you've got, like Dr. Carroll said, I mean, if you have history of or risk of depression or bipolar disorder, look, number one, don't drink, don't use illegal drugs, because you're just going to push it along. Yes, Dr. Carroll?
Exactly.
Yeah. Number two, steer clear of unhealthy relationships. Instead, you guys surround yourself with people who are positive and who won't encourage unhealthy behavior. So again, you want to put yourself around people who, number one, love you enough to recognize if something is wrong, but number two, they're not going to encourage the crazy behaviors that Dr. Carroll mentioned before. Dr. Carroll, another one they talk about, I highly agree with, get regular physical activity and exercise, because it really alters brain chemistry in a positive way.
Yes, absolutely.
And can help you sleep better.
That's right.
Yeah.
And sleeping is a big problem with bipolar patients.
And that was number 5. Yeah. That was number 4. Get plenty of sleep, because if you don't get enough sleep, again, it throws off your hormones, which throw off the chemistry in your body, etc. And Dr. Carroll, I didn't know if you had heard of any of these, but this is stuff that in my world is pretty commonly known. These are supplements that are recommended for depression. So it's really not known if these are going to help with bipolar disorder, because again, with bipolar disorder, the hallmark is the mania and the depression. And also, I want to say that if you try any of these supplements, first of all, you got to tell your doctor, and you can't just stop your medications. Dr. Carroll, tell them, once you're on the medications, any kind of psychotropic drug, if you stop it without weaning yourself and tapering off, God forbid, you could have like a seizure, right?
Well, with the anticonvulsants, you definitely can. Now, with antidepressants, which are also given if people have depression, you can have different symptoms. You won't have a convulsion, but you could feel like you're in withdrawal from something. You could feel like you have the flu, you get a headache or stomach aches or constipation or diarrhea. You can get that if you abruptly stop your antidepressant. It's never good to stop anything abruptly.
Yeah. But these are some supplements. Omega-3 fatty acids that we talk about a lot on this program. These oils can improve depression associated with bipolar disorder. And omega-3, somebody emailed me. It was Laura posted on my Facebook page. She wanted to know the omega-3 supplement that I take. You guys, I use a salmon oil called Polar Power. It's by North American Herb and Spice. So again, I use a salmon oil called Polar Power by North American Herb and Spice. Back in the early 2000s, when I was first diagnosed with depression, an acupuncturist put me on high levels of omega-3 fatty acids fish oils, and it does help with depression. Also, Dr. Carol, magnesium. Most of us in this country are magnesium deficient, and they're thinking that studies suggest that magnesium can lessen the mania and the rapid cycling of bipolar symptoms. This again was on the Mayo Clinic website. Did you know that, Dr. Carol?
Well, I haven't seen that, but I always tell patients to take a vitamin B supplement because a lot of times they're lacking in vitamin Bs and we don't get enough in our diet.
Yeah, B vitamins are great for the nervous system. Yeah, but did you know about the magnesium?
I personally take magnesium, but I didn't know it was good for bipolar.
Yeah, they say that it can lessen the mania and the rapid cycling. And people always ask me what magnesium supplement I take. I always take Natural Calm, which I tell you guys you can get in most health food stores. And I tend to go to the mom and pop health food stores where you can get brands that you can't always find. It's a powder, Natural Calm. It's magnesium. St. John's wort, Dr. Carol, is one. Now, you've got to be careful, though, because St. John's wort can interact with antidepressants and other medications. Yeah. So I
would not recommend that one because if a person's on an antidepressant, St. John's wort has been shown to have antidepressant properties, but we don't really have a good formulation of it in this country. I think in some other countries, like in Germany, they might sell a very good formulation of it. We don't have it here, and it's not approved generally as an antidepressant, although some people have said that they have good results from it.
Right, but again, it can interact. St. John's wort can interact with antidepressants. I can't take it because of my thyroid medication, but also it has the potential to trigger mania in some people because it can interact with the antidepressants. So again, St. John's wort, I probably wouldn't personally recommend that. Also, SAMe. SAMe. This is an amino acid that helps brain function related to depression. It can trigger mania.
Let me just say a word about antidepressants for 1 second, because if a person is bipolar and they take antidepressants, St. John's wort, whatever, and they don't take some kind of a mood stabilizer, like what we're talking about, the anticonvulsants or lithium, they can trigger a manic episode. So you have to be very careful.
Right, and that's what I just, on the St. John's wort and the SAMe, they mention that on the Mayo Clinic website. They mention that these two, you've got to be careful because it can trigger the mania. The other one I wanted to mention, there are 3 things that I take, actually 4 things that I take, you guys, and I just wanted to tell you because I always share what I do. To raise serotonin levels in the brain. Dr. Carol, I don't know if you know this or not, but saffron extract, I take saffron, it raises serotonin levels in the brain. L-tryptophan peptides, that's an amino acid. L-tryptophan peptides raises serotonin levels in the brain. N-acetyltyrosine, it raises dopamine levels in the brain. And then I also take 5-HTP. It raises serotonin levels in the brain. So any word on any of those, Dr. Carol?
Well, I'm not familiar with those. I've heard about them, but I'm not that familiar with them, so I don't know.
Yeah, I take those. I tend to go the natural route as much as I can. And again, as someone who struggled with depression, I take these supplements just because they're known to raise serotonin levels in the brain. So you guys ready to go and come back? And when we come back, we're going to wrap up with Dr. Carol, say a quick goodbye. And it's been great. This conversation's been fantastic, Dr. Carol. You guys, we'll be right back in 2 minutes after this word from our sponsors. We're going to say goodbye to Carol. Then we're going to shift gears and talk to a listener who's had a question for me. We'll be right back after this. I'm Tara Marie Segunda. You're listening to Tara Marie Live on American Latino Radio, Channel 154.
Got a question? Don't be shy. It's your health. Call Tara Marie now. 1-888-411-7242. That number again throughout the U.S., 1-888-411-7242.
Did you wake up this morning with sore knees, hands, or other sore joints? Don't go another day feeling this way. Join thousands of satisfied customers and try NovaJoint. Designed by a doctor to nourish and lubricate your joints, NovaJoint works fast, without glucosamine, chondroitin, or any of the other ingredients that have disappointed people for years. Customers love NovaJoint because it works fast and it's so easy to